Good morning and happy Monday. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. We have a special guest panel this morning. We're going to be talking about something very important this morning as well. Human trafficking, education, awareness, and this is also coming before the Human Trafficking Awareness Summit that's going to be taking place at AU. I've got a experienced and spirited panel this morning. Colleen Murphy, who is the founder of My Body, My Choice. Greg Spayth, investigator with the Human Exploitation Unit, Kane County State's Attorney's Office, and State's Attorney Jamie Mosser.
Good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are you?
I'm all right. I'm doing good. Good to see all of you guys this morning. Good to see you guys this morning.
Glad to be back.
Absolutely. It's been a while. For the guests and listeners as well, we'll be taking a little bit longer this morning for our episodes. We're going to do 45 minutes today. We got a lot of things to talk about. Also, all the information that we talk about in this episode today can be found on the State's Attorney's website. We'll provide the link to that website in the description of this video, along with the website for Colleen's organization, My Body Tells the Truth. Okay, so before we get into the questions, which we have, and we're going to be going over that at great length. Let's start out with some introductions. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jamie, and then please pass it to Greg and Colleen so we can get that started.
Fantastic. So, as you said, I am the Kane County State's Attorney. I am now in my second term being the State's Attorney here, and we're going to be discussing our Human Exploitation Unit, as well as just general signs of human trafficking so that our community is aware of it. This is one of the initiatives I wanted to bring to Kane County because we didn't have any dedicated investigators who can focus on looking for and properly investigating human trafficking cases so that we can bring these individuals to court and hold them accountable for what they're doing.
Right, awesome.
And so to that end, we have a very experienced former Aurora police officer, Greg Spayth, who is a part of that unit.
Awesome. Great to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So my name is Greg Spayth, and essentially I was in law enforcement for 30 years. Last 26 years were here in Aurora. Okay. Last 3 years of that I was the lieutenant of our special ops group. So that's where I got kind of thrown into the realm of human trafficking with some of our cases that we worked as far as narcotics and drugs and street prostitution. So I learned that, started working at the State's Attorney's Office in January, and from there we've been just working. We have a bunch of, a few large cases that we're working right now and kind of processing through that and going through that and learning as we go. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's amazing. From APD to the Kane County State's Attorney's Office, great continuity in law enforcement.
I'm Colleen, and I have a nonprofit. This is called My Body Tells the Truth, and we focus prevention messaging towards children as young as 3 years old. And I'm also a victim advocate, and I've recognized from working with survivors and victims of abuse that this also includes trafficking, which is how I wound up here. And we like to make sure that our messages reach children of all ages. My favorite group is the youngest ones because I know if I can reach the little guys that the older ones are paying attention to.
Absolutely. So one thing that, the first question, the first topic that we'll start off with is the different types of trafficking. Colleen, on one of the earlier calls that I had with the team, I was privileged to learn about your background and how you started in this. And I think a lot of people are unaware, what trafficking it is, what it is not, and those different types. So let's start with that. Jamie, if you can start off with the different types of human trafficking, and then Greg and Colleen add your, assistance after that. 903.
Absolutely. So the thing is, people think this is an international issue. It's something where people are being taken from other countries and brought over here, and that's not all of what human trafficking is. I mean, we see movies with Liam Neeson going in and saving the day, and that's just not what this is. Human trafficking usually comes in the form of either sex trafficking or labor trafficking. Now, sex trafficking is forcing somebody to basically prostitute themselves out, and by taking money, by using force, pressure, and other ways. Sometimes these traffickers actually start to romanticize the whole issue for the person, and then they get caught up in the system. Labor trafficking is where you cause somebody to work with little to no pay, long hours, unreasonable work conditions, and so you're just forcing them to do this for a variety of ways. And so
Right.
primarily the one that everybody thinks about, obviously, is sex trafficking.
Right.
But labor trafficking is very significant in Illinois, in the United States, even in our own community here in Aurora.
Wow, that's amazing. I know we're going to talk about that a lot more and some specifics that we can get into. Greg?
Yeah, I mean, you hit a lot of the good definitions there. Obviously, child trafficking has its own subcategory of those, and that's essentially just the kiddos under 17 years of age and forcing them to do either labor or sex trafficking. For us, we just don't have to prove any of that force, fraud, or coercion or any of that stuff going on. If they're being subjected to that, it's a crime. So, I mean, human trafficking is all about like that psychological manipulation of somebody's mind.
Right.
It's grabbing somebody psychologically and manipulating them, and preying on the weakest of the community and pulling them in and forcing them to do something they don't want to do, whether that be labor trafficking or sex trafficking. So that's really kind of people don't understand that. Like when I took this job, like, human trafficking, what are you going to be working on in Aurora or
Right.
in Kane County? And they don't understand basically what it is. They think, the person that's being chained and brought over, in a shipping container. And it is that on the international scale, but it's so much more than that, really locally, in what we're all seeing in law enforcement.
Yeah, I think most people only think about the international aspects, ramifications, movie and media and what have you plays a part in that. You see those big CNN, CBS News kind of articles, and it doesn't seem like it's something that's local. Colleen, would you concur with that?
Yes, and I would also like to add that when I'm speaking to like the teenagers, something that surprised me when I first got into trafficking is how much the trafficker can play the role of like the best boyfriend you've ever had. And this is somebody that constantly wants to shower you with gifts or plays the role of the hero and likes to go after children, young teens that are in vulnerable home situations, and will offer them all kinds of fake promises to get them away from their circumstances.
Right. I'm curious, when it comes to labor trafficking, is, labor trafficking, to a person like me who's not in the law enforcement community, doesn't have a background with this, does labor trafficking start with human trafficking, or do they support each other? Is that like the large corporation looking for, I hate this term, cheap labor, and it starts with that and then moves into human trafficking? Or are there just two different sets of, criteria, and unfortunately people can fall victim to both of these? I mean, is one a gateway to the other, I guess is my question.
Well, I mean, labor trafficking is part of human trafficking. It's just, obviously not subjecting somebody to sex. It's more subjecting them to labor. So it obviously targets the immigrant community the most,
Right.
And bringing them over. Oftentimes you'll see them, being brought over and told that they're going to, have this great job and work these great wages. And once they're brought over, and they may have had to pay, a debt or be brought over by a coyote across the border. And then they'll hold that over their head and say, well, you're going to pay off this debt, but you're going to do this job instead of the one that we promised you to do. And then they'll, grab their passports and hold their identities and then force them to continue to work until, they're going to pay out this debt that never really ends up getting paid off. And that's how they're trapped. And
Right.
then they're here in the United States, and they have, or they're threatened. If they try to escape, then their family's threatened back in their homeland. And so that's how they end up getting trapped, and they just continue to work and work and work, and they're afraid to come forward to law enforcement because they're here illegally. They don't want to just walk into your local police department and say, hey, I'm being labor trafficked. Oftentimes they don't know. I mean, they know that something is not right, but they don't just walk in to report it. So it has to be something it's a really, really hard investigation to begin and to get into, because, like I said, the victims don't often come forward to tell you, hey, I'm being labor trafficked.
And
Right.
it's more than these big box stores. So we see that oftentimes there, but it's also people who are being forced to be in-home daycare. So they're living there, and they're not able to leave, not really able to get out.
Right.
So we've seen that before. We've also seen it in immigrant workers, especially, who are being forced to do yard work or things like that. So it's more than just those big corporations where you assume that that's happening, where they're working long hours. It's even individually that people have been trafficked.
Some of those people may have their own companies set up and then doing that trafficking, maybe trying to avoid the eye or the scrutiny of law enforcement. Wow. Okay, the time right now is, we just went back, 9:07 if you're joining us. Okay, the next question is, what are some of the common grooming tactics currently being used? We just talked about labor and then sex trafficking. You mentioned the boyfriend who is trying to shower you with praise, drowning and numbing your senses to what's going on. In your experiences as well, what else have we seen when it comes to the tactics being used?
Well, as Colleen said, it's vulnerable. It's the people who are the most vulnerable. And so what is it that they need? They have some sort of need. Are they in a broken home where maybe there's issues there? Then this person swoops in and says, I can take care of you. I can provide you that stability. What else are they looking for? Are they looking for somebody who's just giving them attention because they don't have that?
Right.
And that's usually where we see the sex trafficking going. The labor trafficking is more here, I have a promise of a job, of a future, of stability, if you just come work here. And then, as Greg was saying, they get trapped in this because oftentimes their documents are taken. They're forced to sleep where it is that they're working, and that happens in labor trafficking and sex trafficking.
Yeah, to piggyback just off of what Colleen said, that's a major one that we see. It's either called the boyfriending technique or the Romeo pimp, have you. It's, being that it's targeting a certain individual that needs love or needs affection, and whether that be through friends they find them or they see them at a party or through social media. And then they will just give them everything they don't have, whether it be gifts or love. And they'll break them down and trap them emotionally, and then finally, start normalizing explicit behavior. They'll, say, well, why don't you take these pictures? And why don't you share these pictures with my friends? And then what if, you have sex with my friends? Then, that could make us a lot of money. And it just one by one, and then the victim is trapped. They're ashamed. They don't want to tell their parents. They don't want to tell their friends. And this trafficker slowly will pull this victim away from their friends and all their normalized behavior, and they will trap them. And the victim oftentimes doesn't even think that anything's wrong. They think that he loves me. So oftentimes when we talk to him, or when Colleen or a victim advocate talks to him, they think everything's fine.
Right.
He loves me. He's, I'm doing this for him. We're making money, and they don't even understand that. What's going on is that they're being sex trafficked.
How sad. Sad. We've done a lot of different discussions about mental health, not just with the Kane County State's Attorney's Office, but with different folks. And, to be preyed on like that is just really nefarious. It really is. And I think that there's so many people, because of work situations or their immigration status or whatnot, there are people who are trying to figure out a way to survive comfortably, to get a leg up. And I think it's really nefarious, and I like the work that you guys do and appreciate it, that people are being preyed upon like this, put in these unsafe and dangerous situations for so much of the time. Okay, can we explain what happens after a report is made? As you mentioned, Greg, folks may not be lining up to talk about what's happening. But for those who have considered it and have thought about it, what happens after a report is made? Is law enforcement immediately dispatched, or how does that work?
Yeah, I guess it really depends on how we get tips and reports through just various different means. So it really depends on how it comes to us. So like I said, it's usually not that person that's coming to the front door or calling 911 that says I'm being human trafficked. A lot of times there'll be a parent or a friend that will come forward and say, something's wrong with my daughter or my son, or something's wrong with my friend, and they will give us that tip to look into further. Sometimes we'll get tips from like a human trafficking, hotline or the FBI or what have you. So it really starts with trying to figure out, is this a victim, somebody who realizes what's going on to them? Are they a cooperative person? And it really starts with working with somebody like Colleen or a victim advocate. And we really, as law enforcement, will take a step back from that and not be the first person that wants to interview them, because oftentimes, these people don't trust us. Unfortunately, throughout the years, and me coming up through law enforcement, we used to arrest our way out of these problems, and see somebody committing prostitution or what have you, we'd arrest them, and we figured out at this point that that's we can't arrest our way out of these problems. So, but unfortunately, a lot of the victims come from that sort of background. They've been arrested before for prostitution or for drugs or for retail theft, and then they don't trust us. So putting myself down to sit down and talk to a victim is just not, we've learned, is not the best avenue. It's, partnering with victim advocates and counselors and letting them be the first, or people who are trained to talk to sex assault victims or human trafficking victims. And to get them, to sit down first and get that information and then kind of gauge kind of where we're going from that. So often victims, like I said, they don't even think that there is a problem. They're scared to come forward. And you might talk to them, and they might not disclose for 3 years. But it takes that first initial interaction with somebody to give them your card, to show them that you care, to say, hey, we're here for you. And maybe you might get them to talk, but a lot of times in my experience and through the training is it doesn't happen right away. It's months or years down the line before they realize something's really going wrong. So I guess to back to your question is it really depends on how it comes to us.
Sure.
We really want to gauge what the victim is going to say to us or how they feel about the situation and go from there. We build our cases, or we try to build our cases with realizing we might not have a victim. So that means, there's so much social media, material out there that we can try to subpoena or write search warrants to get into, and then build the case from there and kind of learn what's going on. Because the phone is really such, full of so much evidence for us. So we can try to build a case from there, but it's really hard to build a case, and Jamie will tell you, without having a really good victim.
Right. And, Jamie, we've talked too, and staying on this question too, upon that reaching out, it is a one-on-one atmosphere though, right? It's not broadcast that, hey, fake name here, Alyssa reached out, so now we're working with her. Alyssa's case, going through the scrutiny that it goes through, is a one-on-one issue with the state's attorney's office as that's being developed, right? There's no announcing of this for the...
No, not at all. And usually what we'll do is once we know the information, the investigators do a lot more, is what Greg was saying. They're sometimes sitting on the location to see what's going on. We may put up cameras to see who's going in and out. We use license plate readers to be able to find out who's going back and forth. Is it the same people over and over again? So what they're trying to do is build as much of a case around a victim,
Right.
and with the possibility that we may lose the victim, and not because they're going back into it. Sometimes they just go and get help. They partner with an organization like Reclaim 13, and they leave to get away from all of this, to get their safety and security. And so what we find is that for your fake name person, Alyssa, now we're going to find all these other people that are associated with it. And we're going to see there's other locations besides what we have found here. Our investigations have sometimes uncovered that there's the cell that's operating here that's also operating in DuPage County, in Cook County, and all around, but it's the same individuals, and they're just shuffling the victims, the women, from place to place.
Yes, you remind me about DuPage County. I think there was it's about 2 years old now, a guy got like 6 or 7 years for facilitating prostitution, which had undertones of human trafficking in it. So you're right, this is a multi-county thing that's happening.
Well, we actually got 4 people out of St. Charles.
Really?
St. Charles, plus it was
this recent?
This was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So they all recently just pled guilty and were sent to prison, and that was done through a great investigation with our local police, HSI, my office, including my brilliant first assistant, Christine Baer, who is the real authority on human trafficking here in the state of Illinois.
Okay.
And so 4 people are now enjoying prison life because of a tip that St. Charles Police received, and then partnered with everybody to be able to get these individuals.
Effective law enforcement. That's such a great thing, and that's kind of been that's been a recurring theme when it comes to the Kane County State's Attorney's Office, but also APD as well. So congratulations, Colleen. When it comes to reports now, obviously in your role with your nonprofit, reports haven't been made to you of a law enforcement caliber, but what have you heard from folks? Is what Greg and Jamie speak of true? Is there that reluctance, that trepidation when it comes to making those reports? And in your capacity, how do you soften that?
Yeah, definitely working in prevention means working in disclosure. So when I'm offering prevention to any children, it's pretty common for at least one of them to disclose. And sometimes they're not necessarily disclosing about something that is happening to them right now. It could be something from their past. And many times they'll disclose something that happened to a peer. And from there, I will either guide them towards law enforcement, or depending on their age, I really like to sit down and just explain options and kind of keep them talking through it, because for a lot of these kids, it's the first time that they've actually talked about this, and it's about dividing that pain by having them share it so they know they're not completely alone and isolated, that they do have multiple options. So depending on what happens after they disclose, it might go to the teacher or the social worker, and then from there it can go on to law enforcement.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good to know. I follow the State's Attorney's Office on Facebook and, on social media, so I see the work that's being done. The folks who are being taken off the street for these types of crimes. So, kudos to all that you guys do. Okay, let's talk about 1-800-THE-LOST, which I didn't know about until prepping for today. There's a lot of resources out there, and there have been for a long time. A lot of them are storied here in America. So let's talk about 1-800-THE-LOST. Colleen, you can start with this one, and then we'll move into 911 and other police responses.
Yeah, this can be a great resource. Again, I keep going back to the teens just because they're the tech kids who teach me more than I ever wanted to know. And they like to report anonymously.
Sure.
So one of the things I do talk about, if you are going to go that direction where, say, for example, there is a nude photo out there or a photo that you would like removed from the internet, they do have reporting options available on their website where you can follow the questionnaire. It does help to give at least a name so that when it goes through the system, someone can reach out to you in hopes that there's more questions to have that taken down.
Right.
And connected to 1-800-THE-LOST is another resource on there called takeitdown.org. And I find that a lot of teens find comfort in not picking up the phone and speaking to a person per se. It sort of takes some of that pressure off. If nothing else, at least shows them that the option is there and they can still talk to the police if they want to, but it opens up the door for communication either way if they are struggling or suffering in silence with something that's happening to them, whether it be online or in person.
Good. Very good. Greg, you have familiarity with 1-800-THE-LOST?
Yeah, I mean, 1-800-LOST is through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, so they're a great resource for us for human trafficking investigations. They have a hotline there that you can get a hold of. They send out a lot of tips for these types of investigations, and they're a super great resource for us, to go through on these type of investigations. The National Center or the National Human Trafficking Hotline has a number as well. That we get tips through FBI, state police. There's a number of different resources that all have these different tip lines or email lines that they will send in tips, and we'll get cases through them. So
Okay.
we'll get calls at our office as well. I mean, I've had several of those where I followed up on those and helped people out to different resources as well. So I'm sure we can post those after and get those out to people as well.
Absolutely. Happy to share that. That's what Instagram is for. Jamie, do you have familiarity with 1-800-THE-LOST? What do you know about it? And has it been in use with your office at all?
Yes, and so we were familiar. When we started this unit, we wanted to bring as many resources together as possible. So we actually have a person who is our human trafficking resource coordinator. Okay. And that's how I was connected with Colleen. And so we're just finding all of this, making sure it's on our websites, that it's out there. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has been involved with this for a long time because they are the ones who get tips from like Google or Yahoo or Snapchat of suspected child pornography.
Right.
And so that's anyone under 18 who is either partially clothed or fully nude. And so they report that to the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children, who report it to each state's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, who then funnel it down to the different police departments.
Okay.
And as you know, because we've been on the show before, we created our Child Exploitation Unit in 2022, which focused primarily on the people who are possessing and disseminating child pornography.
Right.
In these last 3 years, we've had over 40 people who were arrested who were just going uninvestigated because Aurora had dedicated people to do it. Elgin had dedicated people, but all of the Tri-Cities area, including St. Charles, that has the most downloaded child pornography, didn't have dedicated investigators to deal with this.
Wow.
And so these different organizations like Take It Down, where a child's photo is out there, has been instrumental in trying to stop the continued victimization. Because people don't realize that when you share it, you're still victimizing them. And so we work with them a lot to make sure our victims have as many resources as possible, but that we take these photos down, these continuously damaging photographs that are affecting people. So.
Now, you guys have mentioned this both twice, and I wanted to kind of piggyback on this, especially if someone else in the audience might have heard this too, but you mentioned that you get tips from the FBI. I was under the impression that, your FBI was kind of the, they were the last stop. Maybe tips would go to the FBI, but the FBI actually assists and gives tips to local law enforcement?
Yeah, oftentimes the way it kind of works is they'll send out a tip to wherever they believe that the investigation should be investigated. So geographically, if it's in Kane County, so there's oftentimes a list of several departments that'll be on there and that could be a federal agency or a county agency or a local agency. And we'll have to work together to figure out exactly who has the jurisdiction to work that.
Right.
FBI does have a human trafficking task force or a unit, and a lot of their agents are on task force working human trafficking. So it's oftentimes, on us to try to figure out how we're going to work this. Are we going to work this together? Are we going to take it or what have you? But the tips will be kind of put out to a number of different people or agencies, and then we'll kind of figure it out from there as to who's going to work it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing to hear. Isn't it exciting? I see you, Colleen. That is pretty... Well, I try to stay up to date as much as I can on the technologies and different things like that and the different parts they play in. I'm a person who, when I read when the press releases come about folks being busted or whatnot, I read in detail because we should help and use our voices and lend our voices to these type of investigations. The idea that something like this could be happening in a place like St. Charles or some of these other communities where we go, we shop, we dine, we have a good time, we hang out, we should be using our voices to give back and make sure this kind of activity is not happening, as much as we can. Okay, before we get into the next question, I would like to piggyback to the Human Trafficking Summit. Can I mention that real quick? Because it's going to be a great event. 9:29 is the time if you're just joining us here on Good Morning Aurora. We are talking about human trafficking, and we are here with Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Mosser, Greg Spayth, who is an investigator with the Human Exploitation Unit, and Colleen Murphy, who is the founder of nonprofit My Body Tells the Truth. So, this is going to be really good. Friday, November 21st from 8:45 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. will be the Human Trafficking Summit hosted by the Kane County State's Attorney's Office and Aurora University. The flyer will be shared on our social media, so you'll be sure to see this. Now, registration is full, but we are setting up a wave list, right. So a wait list. So that's how important this is going to be. It's free to attend. Lunch will be provided, and then there's also going to be offering continued education credits, for law enforcement, social workers, attorneys, and even healthcare workers as well. And I will be moderating this event. So I just want to throw that out there. I'll be the MC, so you'll know that we'll definitely be having a good educational time. Okay, the next question is I think this is really where we get into the meat and potatoes of this discussion. This is something that you and I have talked about ad nauseum in all the interviewing that we've done, is what role does the internet play in this trafficking? We've all seen social media grow and get larger with more apps to do more things, showcase this from Telegram to Periscope, all that stuff. What role does the internet play in trafficking? Jamie, please start off with this one, and then let's go to Greg and Colleen.
It is the primary tool that is being used to be able to traffic people.
Okay.
And I have often said this before, that I'm in favor of taking the internet down. Let's go back to a simpler time where we're not using this. I mean, think about it this way. You could be on your Xbox at home, and somebody could be attempting to traffic you through that.
Oh, yes.
Because it's easy to do, and people fall for it.
Yeah.
And as Colleen was saying earlier, kids are not likely to talk to people anymore. Instead,
Right.
they use their social media devices. I mean, I was home last night sitting on the couch next to one of my kids, and they texted me, "What's for dinner?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Right, yeah, yeah.
And so, outside of mocking them at
My
that
dad
point.
does, my son does that, yeah.
Yeah.
He's in the next room, like, just yell.
Exactly. Use your voice.
Yeah.
Speak to me.
Yeah. Okay.
But so that's why we have it, and it's very easy to do, and it's even quicker. You get more people by going through the internet than you would in the way before, because trafficking is not a new concept.
Right.
People have been trafficked as old as time. What we're looking at right now is how easy it is to get them, and how easy it is to get access to people
Right.
that we've never had before.
Right. Greg?
Like Jamie said, it's the most common place for people to be recruited for human trafficking, and I mean it allows them to do their research, because oftentimes victims and kids and teens, they don't have privacy set up on their accounts, and it allows them to do the research, these traffickers, to look for the people that they want to traffic. So, whether, it be, like I said, the vulnerable people, or oftentimes people will post things that will give these traffickers, hints as to who they want to try to target. So I'm just thinking the internet, it gives such a broad reach to a trafficker to do their research and reach out. It allows them, I think you touched on, photographs and to exploit people through, send me a photograph, and then that gets, on the internet, and then they end up trying to, lure them in that way and grab onto them because they have their photo. And so it's just, it is the number one place. If we could take, like Jamie said, take the phone away from every one of our kids and not have them have it, it would be great. So, because it makes trafficking that much easier for them to commit the crimes and to recruit their people.
Yeah, it just brings the love bombing, like we talked about earlier, to a whole new level. And these traffickers will look for kids who are being picked on online and slowly start complimenting them, building them up, reaching out to them behind the scenes, and making a strong connection to prey on them.
Yep. And I want to say this too for all the parents out there. So my son he uses Discord. You familiar with Discord?
Sadly.
Yeah.
Does this thing on there, talks to his friends, play games, talk to each other. But parents, go into your settings and make sure that whatever, set up your account through your Gmail. I can see all the messages. Every keystroke sent from whoever the thing is, you can see that. There's a lot of visibility that has been built into these, the social media places that kids are able to use, and have them be the primary users. So please, parents, put your settings on, double check everything, hit that 3 dots, go down, and make sure that all the preferences are up to us nowadays. So as you said, if we're gonna allow that, that open avenue to, have fun on social media and on the internet, then let's mine it and really see what's going on and be a part of our kids' lives when it comes to that.
And parents, remember, you own the phone.
Right.
They do not.
Absolutely.
When they're underage, they own nothing. You
Absolutely.
own the phone. Make sure you know the passwords. Make sure you look into it. There's different types of apps you can put on the phone, such as Bark, B-A-R-K, that will actually send you messages if certain terms are being used. Spy on your children. I do it all the time to my kids. They absolutely love it, where I'm like, phone check, and I'll go in their phones. I go in their photos, their notes. I'll go in just to see what's going on through text messages, Snapchat, because that's the way that I know I can help protect my kids.
Absolutely. This is a great discussion. So the time is 9:35, and we have even 45 minutes was
I
barely
know.
enough for this. This is amazing. So let's go to our next question. I feel like we talked about who's most at risk. Children. those young people, those folks who have those issues and are looking for that attention being exploited. Look, we talk about intrafamilial trafficking. This is something that I was very unfamiliar with. What is intrafamilial trafficking?
Okay, I think that's a you question.
I can take that one. Sad state of affairs is what interfamilial trafficking is. Oftentimes, this is when, a spouse or a parent will get down on their luck, whether it be through financially or drug addicted, and they're done selling everything they can sell to make money, and they turn to their children or their spouse, and they turn them into basically prostitutes for sex trafficking. And they will sell their kids, or they will sell their spouse. So say a husband is addicted to drugs, and so is the wife, and they're just out of money, and they'll turn to, why don't I sell you for sex in order to make us money? And the sad is when they start doing it to the kids as well, and that's a hugely underreported situation that goes on. And the poor kids don't know what's really going on. They're just sent out to the curb to get into a car with somebody, and then this starts occurring. But like I explained, that's the most common, interfamilial trafficking is when a parent or a spouse, is addicted to drugs or just down on their luck, lost their job, and then they turn to that in order to make money. And basically, it's just a sick, horrible crime. So
terrible.
Yeah.
Do you have familiarity with interfamilial trafficking?
Yeah, I would say maybe a more simple type case that I've heard about could be like a single mom with kids, and the landlord is offering her money for pictures of her children.
Yeah.
It can start out as subtle as that, and then, as we talked about before, it's all about pushing that boundary further. And so the child has no idea what's happening. Mom thinks, well, maybe it's not that bad. It's just a few pictures, and before you know it, their child is being sold for a whole lot more.
Terrible.
Yes.
That is terrible. Jamie, have you been familiar with intrafamilial trafficking in your work with
Yes.
State's Attorney?
So we've seen this for a long time. We have a child advocacy center that really deals with sex crimes against children, and a lot of that deals with this with family members. And it's not just that the family members are doing it, but as Greg was saying, that they're selling the children for this. And so it's something that we've seen here in Kane County. We've actively prosecuted it because, as we've said before, when you have people to traffic, it's an unlimited resource.
Right.
It's not like drugs where you consume it and then you have to get more drugs. You're just selling the same person over and over again. And for the children especially who know that their parent is doing this, they're not going to know that this is wrong. They're going to feel it. They're going to know that it is, but it's a parent who's supposed to love and protect them that's subjecting them to this. So it's even harder for them to report. And I've said this before to everybody, parents, please teach your children what the body parts are. Do not make up fun names for a person's penis or vagina, because this is how kids report to teachers. And if you don't teach them the words, then they're not going to be able to report it if somebody does something to them.
Right. The time is 9:39 a.m. If you're just joining us, we are here with Kane County State's Attorney Jamie Mosser, Investigator Gregory Spayth, and also Colleen Murphy, who's the founder of My Body Tells the Truth. As we start to land our airplane and put our seats in the upright position here, Colleen, tell us about My Body Tells the Truth.
So we're a nonprofit organization, and we focus abuse and prevention messages towards children of all ages. I like to make sure that our content is always wholesome and child-friendly, easy enough for a 3 to 5-year-old to figure out, because as I mentioned earlier, if the little ones can understand it, then I'm reaching the older ones too. And last year we passed a law called the Child Abuse Notice Act, which is a poster that is required by certain businesses in Illinois to hang in the bathrooms where a child could read it. And I can send you the picture of what it looks like, but essentially it's a picture that a child would, even if they're not able to read very well, they would be able to identify from the picture what it is that we're talking about and help them recognize abuse should they come across it.
Great. The Child Abuse Neglect Act?
Notice Act.
Notice Act.
Yep.
Notice Act. Okay. All right. And then how can we as a community come together to offer hope in combating this type of crime? You know, what can ourselves and the listeners, what can we do to help and assist law enforcement when it comes to tackling this?
So the biggest thing is if you see something, say something. We'd much rather you say you believe something is happening, we investigate, and maybe there is nothing. But if you say something and we investigate and we see it, we'll be able to stop it and actually help out. So that's the biggest thing. Know the different signs of trafficking or somebody who's being preyed upon, and tell law enforcement about it. Because, again, we'd rather have a report of, I think this is happening and it's nothing, versus nobody says anything and it continues to go. The other thing is, please be involved in these different types of organizations and give them money. We are in a very troubling time financially right now, and victims need resources. Law enforcement needs places to be able to send individuals for counseling or food resources or shelter. Please consider giving to organizations like this, because those are the resources that we rely upon. Because in this county, in the state, we don't have unlimited funds to be able to provide these resources. So understand that every dollar that you give is going to help a person change that term victim to survivor. And that's what we'd like to see happen.
Awesome. Greg?
Yeah, I think Jamie hit it on the head. See something, say something. Know what the signs are. We've talked a lot about, some of the signs, that kid that used to be very active, or that, brother or sister who used to be active, or your child who used to be very active is slowly pulling away and not hanging out with their friends anymore. Unexplained bruises or injuries on them. Just not talking like they used to talk. Just very, not knowing where they're going, or, just things like that. Keep, be aware of those type of signs, and like Jamie said, get into their phone, start asking questions, start seeing where they're going. So many times, unexplained tattoos that you just start getting. Oftentimes, these traffickers will brand their victims with tattoos to show the property, and this is my person and this is what they're doing for me. So again, you start seeing some of these. If you're a neighbor, and we talked about familiar trafficking, if you see the kiddo keep going out to the curb and getting in the car with different strangers all the time on an extreme case, say something.
Right.
That doesn't look right. I mean, I don't know those people, and it might not be trafficking, but it could be. And without you saying something to us, we'll never know.
Absolutely. Colleen?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Greg said, same thing, if you're noticing cars coming and going in the middle of the night and there's children living there, you hope it's just a bunch of teenagers, but if it stands out to you, definitely say something about that.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was a fantastic discussion about human trafficking. And once again, I want to remind you that the link to the Kane County State's Attorney's Office and also the link to My Body Tells the Truth will be in the description of this video. And as Jamie Monster said, if you see something, say something. Please take the time to look over and listen to and replay this episode again, hear about all of the information and all the ways that you can reach out and make a difference. And then also do not forget about the Kane County Human Trafficking Summit, which will be taking place at AU. That flyer will start appearing on our social media. You'll see it everywhere, including our LinkedIn and also our Instagram. And get ready for more. We appreciate our law enforcement community for always coming and educating us and letting us know about what's going on. And we had a whole lot more to this interview, so I think we may have to do a part two. I think this is warranted. Greg, how do you feel about a part two?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more stuff we can continue to talk about. So I have more to say. So I'm good with that.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great rest of the day. Be blessed. Take care of yourself and each other.